Hola community, welcome to Blender Today 264. It's a special one today because it's the last month before 5.0 beta starts. Blender 5.0 beta is in October 1st, so less than a month. We're already in September. Then we're in September, which is the month of the Blender conference. The first time we are gonna celebrate it in September ever in 20-something years. And it will be happening from September 17 to 19, so in a matter of a couple of weeks. It's kind of crazy already. There are no more tickets. That's one of the announcements I have to make today, is that there are no more tickets, and unfortunately also the waiting list is complete, so no room for that either. However, it's the Blender conference, so you're gonna be able to see it and watch all the presentations. As soon as they come out and they get edited, they will be put out on this same channel, just like every other Blender conference in the past. Not live stream, but the second best thing, which is, it's actually better even because the quality is going to be better. That being said, though, there is a lot to see. The presentations are there, and you can now vote only for this week. By the way, it's only this week. I'm going to share this link with you because you only need your Blender ID, and you can vote for the Suzanne Awards, the animation festival that takes place every year since 2003 at the Blender conference, and it gives awards, just a Suzanne statue. It's just a nice recognition to 3 projects for animation, design, and shorts, like an actual short film. I already been looking at some of them, but yeah, there's some big competition there. Some really nice material being on display this year. What else? I think that's everything to do with the Blender conference. Then oh, here there is some new merch at here. Well, actually now I don't have enough light, but hey, look at this t-shirt. It's the Suzanne, the goddess Suzanne, with a finger on edit mode and icon. This is a design from Kaft. They have more designs on their website. You can find them if you go to store.blender.org, you go to Kaft collection, and you'll see here they have some designs. They have 3 designs actually. One of them is about Suzanne, more like the rendering side, lights, and so on. Then there's another one for nodes, and there's another one for mesh editing in general. So always fun to see when they come up with these designs. And of course, it's a collaboration, so part of the profit goes to them, that they make the actual t-shirt, but some of it also goes to Blender, so you will be helping out Blender as well. This is the one I'm using right now. So also make sure you give it a look if you want to contribute to Blender in some other way and get some nice merch as you do. What else? The last time we didn't have a Blender episode, a Blender Today episode. I was involved in one of the workshops, the tablet design workshop that happened here a couple of weeks ago. Many people were there: William Reinisch, Sergey, Julian, Jonas, a developer from macOS and iPad, and also XR now. Dalai, even Brecht and Andy joined. So it's always nice to have these kind of workshops here in person at the Blender HQ. So there is a nice write-up about the outcomes. Most of the outcomes of this workshop apply to not just iPad, of course, but also tablet design, and even go as small as iPhone, like a phone size, Android as well, of course. So it's always interesting to see that the goals haven't changed that much, and the idea is to bring the full Blender into an iPad screen, but also have some sort of workspaces or layouts that are better custom for these kind of factors, or form factors. The accessibility part of it is also something that I'm really interested in. There are some things in Blender that work only on hover, when you move your mouse over a specific place, and that doesn't work well in some tablets. The iPad Pro and Apple Pencil have a hover support, but the goal is to support non-hover devices as well, like a phone or a iPad mini, for example. They don't support that. So yeah, so super nice to have these kind of meetings here. Let's close all this and jump right in to what's new in Blender. Wait, no, one more release, one release announcement. Did you even know that Blender 4.5.2 LTS has been released? So August 20th, and I think the last time we met, it was beginning of August. So yeah, 4.5.2 has been released, and in the list of LTS pages, you can find the actual list of what's changed. All these changes. Bam, fixes, bug fixes, and so on. Have them. I'm gonna give you also this link so you can go. If you haven't updated 4.5 and you're using 4.5 in production, it's highly recommended that you do update because yeah, it's only bug fixes, nothing new is there. And also 5.0 we're gonna look at today has some pretty big changes, and some of them are compatibility breaking changes for a good reason. So let's see what is new in Blender as of today. Let's see. Let's start with, well, you know, we're gonna go over 826 commits. I did make a selection of about 100 changes, so today is gonna be a bit on the long side, but bear with me. Have some tea or mate or something cozy to keep you hydrated. Let's see. A for animation, and I always go alphabetically, so let's start with animation. This one, it's a pretty big one. It doesn't look like one, but it's pretty big because the visibility of a bone used to be stored in the bone itself, and if you link this somewhere, if you share this, the visibility will come with that object. And now that has been moved to a pose bone. So the pose is always local, right? You bring in your character with your bones, and the visibility can be overridden locally, which is super nice. So yeah, pretty big change in usability here. Then a UI change for the timeline editor or dope sheet or any timeline editor is that there is a small change here on drawing the lines for full frames. There was at some zoom levels the lines indicators were not being drawn. However, I mentioned this because there is another change. It's still being worked on that will improve the line visibility for these seconds. How do you say it? Like every second that you specify, like based on the frames per second, will draw the lines in a way that it makes sense. I don't know if you ever noticed, but these lines, they don't really say anything, right? There's like 140, 160, 150, like every 10. What does it even mean, right? Like to give it a bit more meaning, this will be changed soon. The working, there you go. So the PR is already being under review. So this will be super nice because then you can set your, I don't know, your scene to be 12 frames per second, and it will be every 12 seconds. And of course with subdivisions inside and subframes as well. But it will be made smarter thanks to Christoph. So nice to see. Then also animation speedups. Yeah, like performance speedups. It's a small change, but hopefully this will be improved. If you ever, I'm just gonna mention this because sometimes people just assume that things are gonna get slower or faster just magically. Sometimes there are implications and changes that make the playback or calculation of geometry nodes slower. And some of those changes have been addressed. Actually, I'm going to mention some of them today, but sometimes they are not even mentioned. So if you notice that the same setup that you have in a specific version is now slower, or well, if it's faster, it's okay, it's good. Also good to share. But if it's slower, then make sure you file a bug report, because then developers can look into if it's expected, because things are more precise now, or not. Next, Armature. Ooh, nice. This is a, remember the envelope weight calculation? That nice, beautiful aura around the bones that make it so you can calculate the weights of the surrounding mesh, of the mesh surrounding the bone, without actually having to use weight paint. Well, this has been updated. It now uses the old algorithm has been removed, and now it relies on OpenSubdiv, the library the Blender uses for subdivisions, which means there should be some improvements even on performance. But the two big ones are that edge and vertex creases are now properly supported, which before they weren't. So it's super nice. And also allows to remove some dependencies from the old code, which at some point is going to be removed. So super nice. The next changes, actually there are some more changes to OpenSubdiv, so pretty welcome. Let's continue. Attributes changes, outer space, benchmark, build changes, bam, CLI. There is now a command line argument. If you're on Blender with the command line, now there is an argument you can run to specify if you want GPU VSync to be on, off, or automatic, which is the default. So you can force VSync via the command lines. Let's see, a bunch of cleanups. Blender is getting so clean, 5.0 especially, which is always good to see. Color management. Well, here, let's at this time of year I have to change the lighting constantly. Color spacing, color spaces, working color spaces. It's a huge topic. Blender users have been discussing this at length for many years. Blender went from the internal color space to Filmic to HDX. Now there is over the years there's been implementations of ACES, and now there is an implementation for ACES 2.0 transforms, which many people will be happy about it. This commit by Brecht is part of a massive task that it just covers so many steps, removing settings because it will be automatic, basically adding, improving the color pickers, basically adding a whole bunch of, tasks related to Blender being a bit more consistent with the way it handles color spaces, but also support for HDR, like proper support for HDR. So the one that I'm covering here is adding ACES 2.0 view transforms, but also adding Rec to 2100 PQ. Additionally, there is also HLG, which is probably the one you're going to use the most. It's HDR in Blender. So if you remember, some time ago, Blender only on Mac OS, although there was an option, a toggle that was available everywhere in Blender. There was an option here for HDR, and that option, even though only worked on Mac OS, it was exposed everywhere, which is not nice. Many users, Windows users, were like looking at it and turning it on and not seeing anything, or they will get a message that it only works on Mac OS. Well, that option has been removed because it's now automatic. If your system supports it, which at the moment is Mac OS and Linux on Wayland with Vulkan, nice combination, Linux, Wayland, Vulkan, supports HDR, the whole HDR pipeline. You can now choose between, from the same menu, and it has nice columns even. You can choose the SDR displays or HDR. So you can go to HLG, for example. And then once you're there, you can choose ACES 2.0 with 1000 nits HDR. The same for HGX. It also now supports HDR and, of course, SDR. So many little things are coming up here. Also, the looks haven't changed, but it's good to see. Is the punchy one supported? Yes. HDR, punchy, 1000 nits. Nice. With this change also, there are other things that changed in Blender you may have noticed, even without using the HDR option at all, is that if you click on it, can you tell the difference? there is no more RGB and HSV alone, but there is now 3 options. One is called linear, one is called perceptual, and one is called HSV. So these are basically 2 different color spaces that are being used here. If you leave the mouse over, you will see that the linear is using linear rec 709, whereas the perceptual is actually using the active color space that you're using. So they are different. You're gonna get different values for the same thing. Like if you go to some color, you will see that there is a difference there, and you also have HSV in sRGB. So interesting. Perceptual. Although there was some mention here about the color pickers option here, about the someone made a really good point that yes, there is a limitation, and there is, and it's not ideal to always lack a linear HSV. So there might be some work coming in that regard. They need some design work to see how to fit the buttons well, just to have more options available. But yeah, pretty interesting to see Blender all across the boards having better support for HDR and better workspace, color space. But yeah, if you look at the list of commits, I'm not going to cover all of them, but optimizations for display transforms, considering aliases for interoperability with other software. All this information goes into the metadata of your render, so you want it to be read properly in other software as well. Removing the high dynamic range setting, wide gamut display options better improved in across Blender. All the menus that were using, there were many parts in Blender that were using the wrong the wrong color space for a long time. This has all been fixed. It's a massive change in Blender for professional pipelines especially. Related to this, let's switch to the Compositor. The Compositor has a new node that allows you to convert to the display that you prefer. So this option, this node has a few options, and you basically choose the color space and the here, the display, view, and the look. Although now that I look at it, it's, yeah, I guess we want the labels here, but we never have labels inside nodes. So it looks weird. Should at least be right aligned, not this. Yeah, should at least be right aligned. That's why it looks a bit more Blenderish. Like, I just noticed this. Next, new node in town called Convolve. Yes, it's allows you to have convolutions. So you can do things like this, where you, let's see, there you go. So where you can have this kind of very nice glare, complex glare effect using the Convolve node. This is very, very common also in other software, so you might be familiar with it already. You can read more in the, well, not much more in the PR, but in the user manual. Next, remove preview from the file output node. Yeah, it's a small change, but the file output had a preview, which it was hard to decide what to show there because the file output could have multiple outputs. Yeah, it was just a bit confusing. So that has been removed. And also from the render layers preview, the first one, and I'm so glad about this because it was so annoying to open your setup for the first time and you haven't even rendered yet maybe, and you'll see this huge square coming out of the render layers node. So glad to see that gone. Then the render layer node, when the passes are not supported, it used to show a message in the top left, like some information saying that viewports, some passes were not supported. It was always saying that, and now it's a bit more, if it's a bit smarter, it shows you the, and it's also less alarming. It shows this warning in the node itself, just mentioning that the passes are unsupported only when you're actually using those passes that are not supported, and also when a non-EEVEE render engine is used. So it's a bit smarter, super nice to have. Let's see. Oh, and by the way, here I'm looking at the chat a bit. Any information about Blender on iPad? I just talked about it. Actually, it's being worked on. We're still looking for proper funding for it. We don't want to take resources away from Blender development itself. So there is work to be done before. But yeah, many of the changes related to improving Blender on tablets are being worked on, and also for accessibility, for showing things when you hover, but always show them, for example, or showing handles to resize the windows in a more accessible way. And another question by Juan Romero: will we ever have proper lens flares? What do you call a proper lens flare? Because if you ask people, the Photoshop 6 lens flare are proper for some. And what is a proper lens flare? Many users prefer to have their own asset for it, or one that involves like actual objects in the scene that you can move around, or a only compositor lens flare. Because we could make one with just a built-in asset using the existing settings and shipping Blender with one asset. So what is a proper lens flare? And if you know how to make one and want to collaborate with Blender, like add it to Blender, donate it to Blender, it's an effort that is really welcome, because the idea is for Blender 5.0 to come with many more built-in assets. As right now Blender only ships with the assets mainly from the hair and all brushes also. Yeah, but the idea is for Blender to ship with many more, like default meshes even. Let's see. We need help from the community for that though. Next, redesign the file output. We were talking about the file output node just now, and this node has been so wrong in terms of UI for so long that I'm glad that it's getting not only just a UI pass, but also functionality pass. There's many improvements here done by Omar. The use node format option was renamed because use node is just not very clear. Socket types now are fixed and do not change as new links are made. Thank you. So node setups are going to be broken when you switch up things. The distinction between the images and the multi-layer EXRs is also clearer, also nice. The final output path are drawn in the UI, so it's more clear. The base path was split into directory and file name. This is also great. So you can specify a folder, just as one setting that you specify the folder, and then the name is separate. That Blender itself for file output doesn't do that. Eventually, I think it should. It make things clearer. But I think in the sequencer that we were using that in some places for images, I believe, or for sequences, I think. Panels were added to group options, including a panel for the node format and change. So if we can see this in a new window, this is how it looks now. You will see that there is as you change the options, change dimensions, it all updates, and the output paths are also updated here. When you enable stereo, now you get two options, like two output paths for left and the right eye. So nice. When you specify image, you also see it, although now the panel has been moved to the bottom. Okay, that's something that maybe should be fixed, because the output path, I think it should always be at the bottom, because it means that as you add and remove sockets or outputs, inputs, then the output path also is gonna increase. So it will push the things that you're working on, the actual options of the node, down. As you add more, it will be pushed down. So I think we should try to find a way to register the output path panel always last. Small thing. Okay, next, let's see what else. Also related to this is that the file output node now supports empty names. Okay. The file output node now allows empty names for its sockets. So doing things like flat RGBA pass with an unnamed layer is impossible, which was possible before the recent redesign of the node. To allow this, socket is items accessors now have an option to allow empty names. Next, support string sockets. I don't think they're used anywhere yet, but it's also good. But it's always good to see because this is more of Blender working well with Blender, right? These string sockets were added for the Geometry Nodes project, and now they're coming into other areas in Blender. Always welcome. Same as menu sockets. They were also added for the Geometry Nodes project, and now they are added to more for pixel sockets. Neat. And speaking of that, actually the menu options in many input nodes have been input sockets has been turned into actual inputs. So look at this image. Look at this beautiful image. All the nodes here that have a menu, now they're actual inputs. So you can change this with other nodes. Basically, every option in the nodes are now inputs, except panels, of course. That's so cool. This really expands the usability by a lot. So nice. Although you might have noticed that now, since these are sockets, they are no longer drawn on the top. That is one UI change that is a bit meh, but because it's a bit all over the place, right? Like menus are sometimes on top. There is also the mask that has nothing. It's just the icon aligned to the left, which is also weird. Let's ignore that for a moment. But it's always good to see this. So flexible. Nice. Blender working well with Blender. Removal. The sunbeams node has been removed. This is a glare option for a while now. It was just a old node that needed to be removed. You can find the sunbeams in the glare node, which also has been revamped a lot in the past, in the recent years. Okay. Compositor. Add jitter input to the glare sunbeams. More options to the to this node. The jitter options allows you to make things a bit more noisy. I use that as a glitch effect that I really like, and it's also faster to compute. So nice. Jitter option. What else? And some optimizations with booleans and menu inputs. So always nice to see. Thank you, Omar. Next, let's switch into the copy global transforms now add-on. This is an add-on. I hope at some point we can move it into, upgrade it into default Blender. Do you use the copy global transform add-on? There is a the paste global transform operator used to save it used to be recorded like an undo step, and that will get on the way with some workflows. So this now has been removed for many operations. Next, bunch of core changes, corrections. Now time to talk about curves. The curve data block continues to improve, trying to align with the old curve data block. If you don't know which ones I'm talking about, because it can be confusing, even for me it's confusing. So when you add an object curve, right, you add just a regular curve. This is the old curve. So you will notice that it's the old curve because it has all kinds of very convenient options here, like in shape keys, or very convenient options for tweaking the shape, the geometry, the profile, the offset, the bevel. Like you know these ones. They're super easy to edit. However, with the introduction of geometry nodes and curves and so on, this was improved. Internally, there is a new data block called with the same name. It's called curves. And you may have noticed that from the editing, copy and duplicate, there is curve and curves. It is confusing, I know. Curve is the old one, curves is the new one. The way that you can tell them apart is by the icon, the hair icon. And that is because this new curve objects or net data blocks are being used for things such as hair. So if you add a fur operator, if you run the fur operator on a mesh, this will add the new curves. And as you can see, there's not that many options. However, if you use geometry nodes, it's way more flexible and performant and so on and so forth. So that is the future. And to get into that future, we need to work in the present. And the present work is to bring some of the options in, such as the curve data spline data panel that has been brought over. So from there, you can enable in the in the sidebar, N panel. I shouldn't call it N panel. Everybody calls it the N panel, but it's not a panel, it's a sidebar. So the N sidebar. These options are available there under the transform menu. Then the delete and the solve operators have been made to work, so they remove any points that have the handle selected, and the toggle free align and set handle type operators have been ported over from the legacy object curves to Grease Pencil and the new curves objects that I just mentioned. On top of that, there has been some performance improvements. Not some, but a lot, actually. These performance improvement by Matthias Fredriksson makes it so on a test with 25,000 curves and 10 control points per curve, so a bunch of control points, the performance went from slight performance improvements. I wouldn't call it 13% slight in the execution time of these curves. So pretty nice, Matthias. Thank you. And also some performance improvement by Hans for caching cyclic curve offsets. What else? Oh, time to talk about cycles. So you may see here that the list of cycles commits is pretty long. Like most of them are by Wysen, but they're related to one feature mainly. So there's some from Michael from Apple, then some from Brecht to work on normal map nodes. Oh, actually, I don't think I have actually shared the whole list. So I'm gonna share with you the list on Blender today, so you can actually, on the Blender community website, so you can actually get the, write a post, get the actual changes that I've been talking about here. So let's call it that way. Let's go to community and publish. And I could maybe also add a link. Yes. So I made this thread. You can actually already see it. It's live. And announcements. And this will be a YouTube ID there. So you can see the embedded. Oh, why do, oh, I still have that. Okay, wrong thumbnail. I'm going to fix that. Yeah, because I changed the thumbnail of the previous video by hand to be a bit more clickbaity, although, like I said last time, it's not clickbait if it actually works. But anyway, there you can find every link that I mentioned, so I can continue and you can, or I can skim through some changes without you getting lost. Okay, all the changes related to world volumes and shading and stuff are related to these two features. One of them, shade volume with null scattering. The math and algorithm and words involved here are way too complex for my smooth brain. However, if you go to the release notes, you will find a much easier to read under 5.0 alpha cycles, then nulls, volumes. Under volumes, there you can see all these changes. Smoke and fire simulations are now rendered with nano PDV, reducing memory costs and usage. Then the new interpolation stuff. However, null scattering is the one I was talking about. You will see there are also some mentions there, some changes. But if you go to the PR that is mentioned there, you will see some much easier to grasp for smooth brains the difference. the performance improvements are, well, performance impact. I think, I mean, it is slower to calculate in some cases, but it basically works well now. There used to be volume boundaries issues. If you see here the volume around an object, you always see this square around it, and it doesn't look very pretty. However, here it's super nice. Then also improvements in the step rate. At some points it was insufficient. At some point you wouldn't be able to go over after a certain number of steps. So, well, sorry for the flash there. I'm gonna let you, this website is not very fast at the moment, so I'm gonna let you go and have a look yourself. Then some changes even better at improving the quality of the volume rendering when the volume is very thin, when there is a very light volume. So here you see the zoom in before and after with more samples, but about a similar render time. So this is 30 seconds render time. In 30 seconds it used to be this noisy, and now is this noisy, less noisy, more samples per pixel, but smoother. Look at this. Used to be like that, used to be like that. Now in the same amount of time. Amazing improvements. Then also these stats are on an Apple M2, which is not even like the latest and greatest. It's good to see that this it's not only tested on a 5090 dual 5090, right? Let's see. Then there are also some changes regarding the surrounding, like the edges, the boundaries. But I'll let you see the whole task there. Let's see. Volume scattering probability guiding, another change related to the volume scattering. But again, I think this is better to show. Some of the changes are part of a larger commit. Unfortunately, I don't know if it is an issue with Kitty, but it doesn't link to the actual PR from here. So yeah, you might need to go and check the actual PR listed in the release notes. Then a lot more changes, individual commits, one API changes, interesting. Then more changes. This is if you're compiling Blender yourself, then Blender can now support compiling with CUDA 13.0 and Optics 9.0. This is change that's coming from people from NVIDIA directly, so it's good to see. Thank you, NVIDIA. Then, oh, this is so nice. So performance improvement, basically. The adaptive subdivision, now the tessellation step is now done in parallel, which is funny to see that this was supposed to be the case already, actually. The creator of Cycles, Brecht, mentioned that it was, I assume it was doing it already. But Jesse here actually found that it was missing that step. This improvement is kind of huge. It goes from 16 seconds to 3 seconds in a test with 300 meshes that require tessellation. And then in just a simple test that is here attached in the PR, it goes from 9 seconds to 1 second. So this will be huge. All right. Let's see. Switch to HIP SDK 6.4.2 on Windows. What does it mean? Well, now you can use HIP again on Windows with a specific version. You need to have your drivers updated, but this will fix a bunch of problems that people were having. But also, there is support now for MNEE, the multi-next. I always forget what it means, but yeah, rendering nice caustics. All right, next. Draw mode. Yes, changes in the draw engine. 2 changes. One of them, it's pretty big, but it's mainly in preparation for better drawings for the hair simulation project, and also with the new curves and grease pencil using these curves and the overall drawing of curve in general. This implementation of the design task that was done some time ago. But basically, this means that there's a new way of drawing curves. It supports, basically, it's exact GPU interpolation for all curves of all types. That's already a huge improvement. Then radius attribute support. You can change the radius attribute and it will be displayed live, because it's part of see it as the Workbench engine, like something that you see on Draw. Then cyclic curve support, resolution attribute support, super nice. New cylinder hair shape type, a new type that has been added next to strand and strip. This is huge. This hasn't been updated in so long. So let's see. Let's see how it used to be the strip one versus cylinder. So this is strip and this is cylinder. So it's an actual cylinder drawing, like an actual. That's so cool. Why don't we have more tests with actual character? Okay, actual characters here. Let's see. So this is strip and this is actual curves. What else? So nice. It's not matching 100. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry, I just had to sneeze. I didn't even manage to mute myself. The CPU implementation does not match the interpolations, but if you're only using GPU, it's much better. Thank you for the bless you messages. This is so good, so nice. We need amazing renders for this. Please, people, go make a comparison. Let's avoid having developer art. Although this works is actually from Daniel Bicet, I believe. It's amazing, but we should see it also in a full-on render as well. Amazing. Thank you, Clema, for your work. Your hard work is very appreciated. Then Miguel Pozo, another member of the EEVEE Draw GPU module, did a big performance improvement that instancing heavy scenes can range from 1.5 to 3 times faster depending on the hardware and the platform. So this is the syncing all the instances at once. So nice. So basically it only works for certain object types in Workbench and the overlay, but this is also pretty big in terms of performance. Let's see. Time to redo open data again. Oh, because of the thanks for all the messages. That's because of the work that you think the open data, when we talk about open data, it's a benchmark website. Not really, because every test it has a version attached to it. So of course comparing between versions doesn't really help. If you have 4.5 and then you compare to, I don't know, 4.4, then doesn't really help. Like if you group this by Blender version, like maybe it helps developers to see the difference between, like how, for example, the same, if I limit this to, I don't know, 4090, and then you can compare how it is now with the previous version. So you can actually see that it's about the same speed, although 4.5 is slightly faster. Well, actually it is quite faster, 6800 to 70 than 4.4. And then you could also say, okay, 4.3, although it's not always fair to do these comparisons because more features get added to Blender, to Cycle. This is a Cycles benchmark, and it's not easy to compare, right? Maybe more in the past, the surface scattering was less precise, so it rendered faster but worse. So it's not always a thing to compare. Okay, time to move on. we are in the letter D so far. You go depth graph changes, documentation, EEVEE, our little guy EEVEE, which reminds me of, I have this now, this Pokeball here, because part of the, that's a little thing about the iPad workshop, is that all of us at the workshop, even in the very early stages of Blender on iPad or on tablet, were able to model a Pokeball from scratch without the help of anything else on an iPad. And there were some very different approaches, but we found out so many issues already by just making a Pokeball. So we call it the Pokeball challenge, and we're gonna continue working on it. And Dalai bought these ones for the teams just so we can have a reference, because many of us forgot how Pokeball is even. So yeah, the Pokeball challenge. Maybe once the iPad version is out, more people can try it out and see how fast they get to model a Pokeball without the pen, without the mouse and the keyboard. And I'm going dark again. Netherlands, what's wrong with you? Okay, next. War Shadow. Well, this is a bug fix. Actually, in 4.5 there was an issue where world sun shadows no longer work, and this actually should be backported to the to 4.5. I wonder if it's even there. Let's see. 4.5 corrective releases, and then here let's do EEVEE world. Yes. So if you had issues with world sun shadows, they have been fixed twice. For some reason, this is twice in 4.5.2. I hope the second fix didn't unfix it though. Okay, next. Grease pencil has been removed from the supported geometry types for EEVEE. Yes, these are sad news. However, it's also good news in a way that it's it wasn't really working well, and it was one of the targets, but better to remove it from the targets and not have a half-ass implementation until things are properly implemented. So yes, grease pencil materials will still be grease pencil materials, just like with cycles. But yeah, it's good to have the team agree on these kind of things before it's too late or we are deep into the beta of 5.0, and yeah, better to do it properly. So you can read more about the release notes on the link that I shared in the Blender community website. Next, let's talk about FBX for those poor people that still have to use this ancient proprietary format. There is a new option now that is similar to the one in USD and OBJ that allows you to have a name collision option. So it automatically treats colliding names for materials properly, similar to how it's done in USD and OBJ. Let's move on. There's a whole bunch of fixes. Look at how much better Blender is, and many of them don't even have an actual number assigned to them. It's just fixes that happen to be fixed without a report, but many are fixed with a report, so please keep reporting them. Let's move on. Then, wow, finally, Ghost. Wayland changes, but no, just small things. Minor change, error handling. GPU changes, performance improvements, and so much more. Not gonna cover all this, otherwise we're gonna end up tomorrow. Let's talk about geometry nodes. Only 2 changes. They must be cooking something big and dynamic and physicky. I heard there must be some... Oh, I ran out of water. So yes, there are some things being cooked in the geometry nodes department. However, something was being cooked for a long time, and I already discussed this a few times. It's bundles and closures. It's a 2 new socket nodes and socket types that are part of Blender now. So there is a blog post. There's an entire blog post about it. That actually there was, I think it was after the live stream. So I'm gonna share it with you on the chat as well, so you go and check it out and give it a read, because it explains everything and it's written by Jack. So it's yeah, better to whatever I could explain right here. But basically, you can have like functions, like you can make like little functions that you can reuse as elsewhere, and you can pass those as like a wire, a socket. So you can build really, really complex things such as physics or scattering, or you can pass the result of a scattering function to another node. So yes, pretty complex things, which will allow for physics, for pretty much anything. It's one of those last remaining big parts of the procedural workflow that was needed. So pretty nice to see that. I wonder if people are talking about it. Let's see. YouTube Blender closure bundle. Let's see if people are actually new closures and bundles, poly count, and new Blender Geometry Nodes closure tutorial. Nice, Chris P is working on that. Okay, and I'm sure that we're gonna have a very nice video by Harry Blends as well. Let's see. Oh, by the way, did you know that Harry Blends is coming to the Blender conference? You can already see the schedule if you go to conference.blender.org and wait for the website to load. Go to schedule, and then where is Harry? There you go. The first day at noon, there is this presentation by Harry Blends. So cool. Okay. If you haven't seen the schedule for the Blender conference, I'm sharing it here. Oh, we have the one and only here in the chat. I haven't seen you. Hello. I bet you're already preparing for the closures and bundles, which is gonna be pretty big. It's been around for a while now. I think people have been making tutorials, so it's been around. Let's see what else. I'm gonna mention the changes in the zone color, repeat zone color, changing the closure colors, because they were done before the out of experimental, so now they are properly and they should work. Let's talk about grease pencil. Several changes here. One of there is the improving the cyclical end cap rendering. So this is awesome. Have you ever noticed that the cyclical rendering of grease pencil shapes will often result in this overlaps when you were using like non-fully opaque colors? Of course, if you weren't using it, it would be hard to notice, but also these tiny gaps here, they will be not ideal. This is how they look at the moment. The 4.5, 5.0, just beautiful, amazing. How did we survive that long with this without someone like Casey Bianco for helping us? Let's give it all the love and the rockets launching and everything. Thank you, Casey. So Harry says that he's rehearsing his presentation with my backup dancers as I type. Nice. That's looking forward to that. Well, you know that the Captain Dissolution Conference presentation with the I'm not gonna spoil it, but with a live performance. Well, that's where the bar is at the moment. So just saying. Let's see. And it's the amazing song. Although it's Blender song, it's unmatched, so we shouldn't even try. Next, the grease pencil can now be exported to other curve types to SVG. So this supports for Bezier, NURBS, and Cadmol-ROM curve types in SVG exporting. Thank you, Casey. Another one by Casey. Edit mode pen tool, similar to the curves, I assume. Actually, I haven't seen this. So extrude points by left click, which will have the type of extruded handle type. Then move the handles by dragging the mouse, snap handles. And wow, how did I miss this? It's been 2 months. Ooh, nice. Single click will create a new curve, and then click drag, I guess, to move the handles, like you would expect. So it's similar to the pen tool in the curves, right? But I guess it has more options for grease pencil. Interesting. Click on the first point, it will close the curve. Points can be deleted with Control. Points can be created if you hold Control and click. Handles can be selected and moved. Control will snap to specific angles. Segments can be moved by clicking and dragging. Point can be dragged. What is this? Inkscape? Illustrator? So nice. Thank you, Casey. How did I give all the proper emojis? No, I did. Amazing. Thank you, Casey. Let's see. Join operator now leaves the handles selected. Yay. It was very annoying. Next, let's go. Internationalization. I/O. Oh, I didn't mention this actually, but the file handler drop operator now has properties warning. Now it's gonna give you a proper warning when things don't work well. Nice. Thank you, Guille. Next, add apply transformation option to the OBJ exporter. Nice. You can now apply transforms. I think this is also visible but present in other exporters. Good to see it in the OBJ exporter. Next, the image mask editor now has tools in the toolbar, which it's not a new thing that it has a toolbar, because it used to have a toolbar. It's just that it was never exposed. Like it had operators, it had a toolbar, but it was empty. All the buttons were empty. You would drag an empty region around, and that's still the case in 4.5, which I'm not happy about, but I'm glad that it's been fixed for 5.0. So good to see it. And yeah, tools with a toolbar, which for when working in the iPad or tablet workshop, that tool bar added in 2.8, which I rarely use myself, to be honest, for some things, annotations, and I never use the gizmos, I never use edit mode tools, I use the shortcuts. But now on desktop, actually it makes on a tablet, it makes so much sense. You can actually tap to switch, and I think we're gonna keep using that a lot more. Let's see. More changes. Keymap. Oh, yes. So, sorry for the flash. I will try to find a way to not flash. Maybe. I mean, at least it could flash black. Why flashing white? Small change, but it's a working, like what do you call it? Muscle memory change. You're gonna break your muscle memory when switching to the next or the previous keyframe. However, this only affects like animation, basically to go to the previous and next keyframe. However, that was the case in some other places. Like if you go Alt down or up, or in the sequencer, or in other software, most other software, if you go to if you do bottom, or like I think DaVinci Resolve or other software that use these keys like down and up arrows, to go to the previous and the next keyframes. Now it is consistent. So yay for consistency. However, yes, if you were used to the previous one, you will have to shuffle around. Next, small change in the UI. The spot size for lights has been renamed to beam angle, which is a bit more, it's a small thing, just the UI, but it's a lot more standard, and Blender already uses the word beam for a beam angle for other parts in Blender, like area lights also have beam, so it makes more sense. Switching to line art, two options. One, use radius instead of thickness for generating the strokes. This is using the radius attribute. The line art previously would use the same thickness value as found in the grease pencil before 4.3 for generating the strokes. Now everything is migrated to using radius, so it's more consistent. And it makes sense now to change it to using radius so it's consistent with everywhere else. Super, super nice. Consistency for the win. Allow curve objects to be loaded into calculation. When line art is first developed, curve objects didn't exist yet, but now they do. So now they are considered like other objects to be calculated by and supported by line art. So technically you could now use line art on fur, now that I think of it. Nice. It wasn't really that much code, actually. It was just in Python, just the poll, just to show it or not, or making. Then in 1, 2, 3 parts, just adding one more object type. Nice. Okay, next. M for mesh. Oh, nice. So optimization changes these mesh. Avoid quadratic vertex balance complexity for corner normal. What does it mean? It means an 8 times speed up when in an example with a 20,000 fan fill of circles. This gives an 8 times speed up. So this is what it used to take in main, 161 milliseconds, whereas now 29 milliseconds. 161, 29. Performance improvements. Yay. Thank you, Ilya. Another one, also by Ilya, to improve the mutex lock in hot loop for custom normals. What does it mean? In the performance improvement depends on the mesh size and the number of CPU threads. In some files, there might be no change, where in other files, up to or even over 2x performance improvements. Nice. Next, well, similar to mesh, now modeling, 3 new improvements. 1, add connected support for the auto merge, limiting the merge with by the connected geometry. So connected, similar to the proportional editing, the O shortcut that you can move part of the mesh, but only affect what is connected. The same for auto merge. Super nice, actually. Never thought about it. Thank you, Campbell. And then auto merge also was added, support for auto merge in the bevel operator. The bevel operator can leave overlapping vertices, support auto merge, so these are clean when the tool setting is enabled, by Ethan Trodig. Thank you so much for this one. Oh, and there is another one on expanding the use cases of auto merge vertices. Nice. And Ethan is a developer from the community, so good to see more people involved in modeling. We hear from the community that the modeling parts in Blender are forgotten and people are not updating it, so it's good to see the community jumping in. Modeling. Support maintaining the active object when pacing an object. So you copy, paste, the active object is maintained so it doesn't changes the active materials or modes or so on. Nice. Then, okay, multi-res. I wasn't going to talk about this, but it seems pretty big. There was a huge rework completely. That's how long it's taking the website to load. Basically, look at this. 1,500 additions, 8,000 deletions, complete rework for multi-res. So the bake from multi-res option from the legacy derived mesh and to subdiv basically is to move it to the new open subdiv workflow, which means there is much more closer handling to the multi-resolution data. Nice. N-gon faces are properly supported now. It's double nice. UV interpolation is done correctly now when baking to non-base level, so other resolutions other than 1. Triple thumbs up. And that's about it. Well, I'm pretty happy with that. So thank you, Sergey. Wow, that's awesome. That's amazing. And that's not only the only one, actually. There is reworking the baking to high resolution displacement, also complete rewrite, and 200 deletion. So yeah, complete rewrite. This makes this issue was simple to see when baking high res displacement for an object which uses keep corners to UV smoothing. So super nice. It uses more memory, unfortunately, but it's not too bad. So it's 12 bytes per loop. So it's like 48 megabytes for a million faces. It's not too bad. RAM is cheaper. Rather have it working well. And implement vector displacement baking. Oh my goodness. Support baking to object and tangent space. What? Really? Or compatible with cycles vector displacement, which has a actually I missed this one when I was going through the changes. The viewport situation is a bit confusing. Seems that EEVEE does not handle vector displacement properly and rips all the faces apart. Cycles render the displaced objects correctly. Not entirely happy with the UI. That's fine. Just, there are other issues. I'd rather have it with a bad UI than not. As displacement space does not really belong to the output, so doesn't low resolution mesh. Perhaps the best would be to have a separate pass to revisit the setting. Also, make it more clear that the low resolution mesh actually does. Isn't that nice? How is this not getting more attention? Baking to object and tangent space, multi-res. Or am I missing something? Why are not people freaking out in the chat? Where are those emojis? Okay. And finally, Sean Kim added conform base. This commit modifies the operator for base apply multi-res to take in a new parameter, which determines whether the final heuristics to adjusting for the subdivision surface modifier applies. This results one bug related to apply base shrink operator for multi-resolution modifier from 2024, or a year ago. Super welcome. So thank you, Sean. Baking and cool, right? I mean, multi-res, right? That's huge. Multi-res is one of the big things that needs to be fixed before pushing Sculpt in like Sculpt layers and all those things. First, you need to be able to sculpt properly and bake those changes into proper maps using multi-res. Also, like, what use does it have to sculpt with multi-res if you can't bake it properly, right? Otherwise you end up with a trillion polygons mesh and that you can't really use. So it's all part of the greater good. So I'm glad to see this fixed. I'm not glad to see how the light is going down with situation here. Like, it is making it any better. Okay, no? Okay, never mind. Let's just hurry up. Okay, nodes. There are changes to nodes. Okay, you're not gonna notice this one, but it's there and you will use it because it's just makes sense. These breadcrumbs, let me put it full screen here. Oh, okay, now, okay. These breadcrumbs in the node editor are now actually interactive. You can click on them to go in and out to different levels in the UI. Such a small thing, but it changes everything, because there was no way before, if you were like 5 level deep into your node groups, there was no quick way to go all the way back to the top level or somewhere in between, and now there is. So these breadcrumbs that have been there since I think 2.8 or 3.0, it's been a while, they're now interactive. This is amazing. So Maxim made this change. I think we could even extend this to other places, because we also have those over here. We have it in the, let's go to Blender. So we have those breadcrumbs in other places, right? You have here, for example, in the properties editor. So you could be, we could make this interactive. So you click on curves and would actually go to curves, or you go click on the object and it won't go to the object settings. Small thing, but yes, so nice. Here you could go to object, would be nice. Amazing, small thing, quality of life. I already can see my life quality improvement. Let's give it more emojis. Thank you, Maxim Kotz. Another community contributor. It's not a developer from the Blender Institute. It's a contributor that spends his own time just to make Blender better. So nice. Thank you. Let's see what else. The other changes. Okay, you may have noticed this one. So you couldn't notice the previous one that I just mentioned with the interactive geometry nodes here, for example. But you may have noticed that some nodes now are shaped like a fridge. So this, you collapse a node and now they look like this. Yes, they used to look like I think the principal BSDF would actually go down to a circular shape, which is also so weird. And all the sockets were misaligned. It just wasn't great, actually. I happen to have Blender 4.5 here, just to show you how ridiculous that was. But yeah. So if we go here, okay, Blender is still compiling. Oh, 4.5 is so slow. I sometimes just forget how, like, all the improvement that they did for performance. Jesus, so slow. Okay, collapse. There you go. Oh, it wasn't a complete sphere, but almost. It was, but you could actually collapse it to a sphere. Okay, so yes, this is how it used to be. A bit weird. Now this is a bit better, right? Everything aligns. However, I still think there are improvements to be done. Here, where are all these million things coming out? When I have them collapse here. So the collapsed sockets shouldn't be shown, I think, right? Well, why are they shown when it's expanded, but they're not shown, but they are shown when it collapsed? It's like the opposite. Also, maybe on hover we could show the name of the socket so you can actually see them. Would be nice. Same way that we have this kind of tooltips, right? So you can see the name, because it's not even in the tooltip. Like, actually, if you leave the mouse over, you get a nice description of the socket, but you don't get the socket name. And it's done this way because it's a bit redundant. You usually can see or you see what it is, but I think we should do these two changes. One, add the socket name to the tooltip, and show them on hover or something like that. That would be nice. But yeah, it's like a little fridge here. I mean, most of the time it looks fine. Look at this. Looks amazing. Most of the time when this looks super good and it's all aligned. So nice. The position is jumping weirdly, says someone here in the chat. Miles. Yeah, it's not really jumping because the idea is that this text stays aligned. That's why. This is jumping weirdly, but I mean, what to do, right? This is the only output. But yeah, it's funny. Okay, next. Let's see what else is new in Blender. More changes, internal changes. Oh, new node in geometry nodes. Well, a new old node. The node is called Gamma. That is a case that is also a node that we've seen from the Compositor, right? And now it's available in geometry nodes. Next. Oh, small quality of life improvement also by W Cloud. When you make a node group with like Command G, Control G, it will, and this node group only has one node, it would actually take the color of the one node and use it for the node group. Such a small quality of life improvement. So nice. Thank you, W Cloud, for working on this. Where's the code even for this? Is it Python or is it actually... Oh no, it's all over the place. Node color tag. Wow, it's actually quite involved. So nice. I wonder what else we could do with these things. Would it make sense for frames? No, for... I don't know. What else can you think about? Next. Node Wrangler. Make lazy connect without menu to only consider visible sockets. Oh, nice. So when you use lazy connect, it used to try to connect everything, even the hidden ones. Okay, and now it will be smart and try to only connect to what is visible. So it's more like a fix and improvement. So yes, thank you. And thank you, Edex, for actually improving Node Wrangler instead of making a whole new add-on. Next, in the for the outliner, there is a an improvement for right-click select users. So previously, it would always, even if you have right-click select, it would always select with left-click. So now it actually follows the setting that you have selected. P for paint. Store brush and palette colors in scene linear color space. This is a this change also related to all the color spaces changes that we mentioned before. Pretty welcome. This is by Brecht actually. So pretty big change actually. Yeah, for historical reason, they were always stored in sRGB, which cause all kinds of complexity, but now they're stored in scene linear color space. Nice. Backward compatibility is not perfect, as we cannot determine if the brush has non-color data in association, and there is forward compatibility though. Super nice. And another change by Sean that makes it so changing the brush size values to represent the diameter of your brush. Let's see if there are any. Nice. So this commit changes the internal storage and user-facing representation of the brush size values, size and unprojected size from radius to diameter, sorry. Nice. Next. Point cache, improved performance and compression. This one is by ACES, Compression and Performance Master. Point caches used by the particle system, closed, voids, etc. are now always compressed using the ZSTD coupled with lossless data filtering. It is both smaller cache files and faster at the same time. You don't always get both smaller sizes, and faster. The UI has changed has changed a bit. So what used to give you these options, compression, fast, slow, now it's gone. It's good by default. Nice. Smaller and faster. Neat. Oh, even graphics. Nice. So what used to take 296 megabytes now to 60, about the same speed. And with this PR, it's actually 214 and almost the same speed also. Neat. What used to take 23 megs, now 17. Next. Bunch of Python stuff, Python changes, RNA changes, read files, refactors. Blender has been refactored several times, many parts of it. Always good to see for 5.0. Oh, related to baking again. Render. Bake only to explicitly selected images. This is an API breaking change, but makes it so now you can bake only to the selected and active images, as opposed to all the active images. Previously, the targets were all active images in all the materials, which can be confusing. This made it very unclear which images were baked to, as images can be active without being selected. Weird, I know. It also made it impossible to not bake any image in a material, since there is always an active image as long as an image texture node exists. That was so even if a material that you were not using or that you were not looking at had an image texture node, it would be considered active and it would be baking towards those. So yes, good to see that it has been fixed. Accidentally overwriting images and so on and so forth. Thank you, Martijn Versteeg. This is an API breaking change. Yep, it is. I hope people that make these add-ons for baking and stuff are aware of this change and update their add-ons soon, especially Uku Paint and all those popular ones. Next, more reverted changes. Sculpting. We have two changes in sculpting. One, the emit size for the geometry sculpt undo steps. Emit size for geometry. What is this? The sculpt undo system does not provide an estimated amount of allocated memory. This is commonly used for non-brush operations, and as a result, the memory limit undo preference is ignored. Okay, so now no longer ignored. Or is it? Yeah. Nice. So better undo steps for the geometry sculpt undo. Remove hard-coded plane offset values for clay brushes. The clay and clay strip brush have a built-in hard-coded plane offset of 0.4 and 0.18 meters, respectively. This value is added to the displacement scalar after the pressure sensitivity is factored in. And now this should be exposed, right? So previously, if you were using any of these nodes, it will have an offset just hard-coded by default. And now, let's see how it looks. Now there should be an option, exposed, that allows you to change this offset. And here, as you can see, it's increased a lot more, but it is exposed, so you can actually adjust it yourself. Next, in Shrinkwrap, oh, again, Sergey made it so Shrinkwrap modifier now uses the OpenSubdiv library instead of divide mesh. What does it mean? It means better everything. It's the old code, it can be removed. Only the base vertices and subdivided mesh are taken into result for better performance and memory usage, so less memory. And proper crease support, similar to how we've seen before. Edges and vertices creases are now supported by Shrinkwrap modifier. So neat. Okay, next, batch notations in test changes, and let's move into the user interface change. We're close to 2 hours. I don't have water anymore. So let's go to good old water. How's everyone doing? It's okay. This thing of just doing a one live stream every month makes it hard, but let's go on. User interface, bunch of changes this in the last month. One, I don't know if you noticed, but now the how do you call it? The modal status feedback. So when you transform something, when you edit something, this text used to show up on the left side of the screen. So when you edit, this text up here would show up. Also, it would show some background. It will draw something in the background. I don't know if you notice, but you will see that there is this gap would show up and would flicker a lot. So this has been addressed, and now this, what you will see here is just the text and is center aligned. So it's closer to where the action happens, and it should be easier to scan at a glance. This is a change that is a work in progress as well, because there is, in order to prevent, sometimes some operations have this flickering, which is very annoying, but there is a patch to fix that. But in other cases, for example, when you're working in like beveling and you are like changing the segments, it's much easier to see what you're doing, right? You can actually, or loop cut, for example, can see the changes in a more clear way. This is closer to where the action happens. So I quite like this change. Not because I am the author of it, but because many people in the community requested it for a long time. Was also on right-click select, so I'm happy that it is happening. Also, I'm pretty happy about this small change that you may not notice until you use it. View layers and scenes now have the selector in the properties editor. As also additionally up here, this is being worked on. It might become more compact, a popover maybe, but yes. So we didn't have this. I don't know why. We should have had it since day one. We just didn't want it to have duplicate data up here. View layers are really, really useful. Really, for some workflows, are the only way to get proper compositing. But many people are not even aware of it, because you can do most of the work, maybe 80% of things in Blender without even caring about view layers. And but they get a very prominent place up here since 2.8. That has been changed. Scene was always there. Scene was since before 2.8 even. And it's important to see which one is the active scene, especially now with some changes coming to the sequencer. It is important to have that there. So they are additionally here and here, but soon they might become more compact. I'm working on it. Let's see. Well, if you're interested, actually, I can show you, because I happen to made the issue. So it's the view layer popover. So what I have in mind is something like this. It's a popover that it could or not could have the name of the view layer. Maybe it's just overkill to have the view layer there, because we have this in the outliner already. But basically it's a popover that you can change scenes, create, delete, pretty much everything from there. So yeah. Let's see. Next. A new option allows you to set the let's just show it here. A new option allows you to set the temporary editor for preferences in a new window or maximize area. This is the same concept as rendering, where you can edit, you can render. By default, it's on a new window, but you can also render to the image editor, or just not even show anything at all while you render. The same for file browser and preferences. So if you want to go full 2.7, Blender 2.7 was this way, everything maximized. So, well, I don't know, maybe the preference is not, but file browser and the render was always opening in maximize area, which means that if you render, Blender takes over the scene, the screen, and so nice. I love that. But, you know, some people prefer Windows, so that's why it's the default. But anyway, there's a new option now that Jonas added to make it so it opens in a full screen maximized area. This is one of those features that comes from the iPad tablet workshop because it was not, well, iPad so far doesn't support multiple windows on the on apps on Blender. So this is one of those things. Next, Harley added this very nice subtle fade in for the lines when they come in and out. So you can, when resizing these divider lines, they show a bit nicer. Harley also made nicer dialogue windows. So when things go wrong, you can actually tell them apart from other dialogue not menus, but pop-ups. This one has a slightly redder icon and the top line on top, which is new in Blender. We have never seen this actually, but it's a lot more to, you know, call your attention because it's something serious as opposed to other warnings that maybe just like information. And this has been used for Vulkan actually, which is what the other PR has, the image. Next, the asset shelf toggle will be grayed out or hidden if it's not available. In previously, the little triangle on the bottom right, it would always show regardless if the asset shelf was available or not. Not anymore. The playhead option has been moved to the footer. This is actually pretty new. This is from today. So you are not going to see this in your daily builds. So the snap options have been moved to the header. So they are now new here in the timeline, but in timeline is going to go away. It's going to no longer exist in Blender 5. So you will see it in the view footer, which contains playback buttons, playback controls. So this is unified. Next. So actually what's new today is that in the timeline, you have a playhead control, which wasn't there before. Next. Oh, W Cloud added icons to more data type menus. So you will see these icons used in more menus. So you can better make a connection between integer, vector, color. So these icons were only visible in some menus, but not on all of them. Now they are. So yay, small quality of life improvement again. Next. Some sockets in when you have node trees that you're linking in and they're not editable, now they will be grayed out. So they, yeah, makes sense. This is a LinkedIn node group and all its buttons and options cannot be changed. So it makes sense that they are grayed out. So more like a fix than a feature, but a really useful one. Thank you, Jack. Then option indicate region overflow. Oh yeah, so this is awesome. I'm gonna show it live. So basically now when a I don't know if you notice, but look here at the bottom. I'm gonna make this twice as big. So there you go. So if there is room to scroll, you will see now a subtle drop shadow to let you know that, hey, you're actually, you know, here, for example, I can tell that there is another panel here, whereas previously I wouldn't, because the color of the header was the same as the color of the background. So you wouldn't tell, like here. So now you can. And it's like, oh, there is actually information I'm missing out. This is additionally to the scroll bar, of course. So that's why it's a little extra thing. I don't know if you've noticed, but you also have that behavior on headers. So if the header, if there is more info here, you will see a subtle gradient letting you know that, hey, there are more things there that you can scroll to see. Whereas before you wouldn't. So as you get to the close to here, it's subtle, but it's there. I like it. I love how Blender 5 is getting these subtle ticks here and there, and we're using like gradients a lot more. When you're dragging a panel and you click drag it, you see there is a shadow on top, so to let you know that you're on top of the other node, of the other panels. So nice, small little tricks to make Blender slick. Next. Sean Kim made this: prevent automatic mode switching in certain scenarios. So this is UI, but also UX. In some cases, it could happen that when you're switching objects, you will switch modes and when you didn't want it to, and this has been improved basically. So Sculpt mode was unique compared to the other modes, and is how visibility is handled, leading to inconsistencies in Blender as a whole. So basically less jumping between modes when you switch objects. Next, library override had some very specific naming conventions for the options. Some of them really old, not even used, so they have been removed, but the ones that haven't been removed have been changed. So defined overrides, we don't never use the word defined anywhere, so use add, and now it's called add. Single overrides, and the same for other options. And I believe there are some other ones too. Yeah, define override type is just add override. Small things, but just to make Blender more consistent. Pratik made this very nice, which is a bug fix, but it made it so when you collapse the nodes themselves and go back, they are stored, like they're collapsed in the way you collapse them, which is always nice. It is also nice to see how Nika is making the theme options more unified. You will find in the theme section and the preferences that there is a common section that has two other sections. One is animation, one is curves. So animation has all these options related to animation, which will affect all the animation editors: graph, dope sheet, anywhere you have animation, NLA, anywhere you have animation and it makes sense, all the lists will use these settings, which is so nice because you only need to tweak it once and it's consistent all across your animation editors. Previously, these options were duplicated in most cases across all these theme options. Very bad. The same for curves. All curve settings are now here as opposed to being all over the place in different editors. And there's more to come on that. The keyframe properties as well, and some of them have been actually removed. Some theme options have been removed because they were, yeah, they were duplicate. They didn't make sense. Let's see. Although there is a new theme option that wasn't there. The movie clip editor selected track option wasn't exposed. It was using dope sheet hard-coded colors, but now there's a new theme property. Interesting. I haven't seen this before. For the selected track, and we couldn't use something else for this. Selected tracks in movie clip uses a hard-coded color. Add a new property for them, and previously hard-coded color was just a default. Oh, okay, so it wasn't even a way to set it. Okay. Blender light theme removes the preview range. Okay, that's not the default color. Bad screenshot. Okay, I understand. I was just wondering if there is an option we could borrow from somewhere else or make it common for lists, right? It's like it is like an animation thing. No? Next. Warning when dragging non-blend files onto the executable. Oh, nice. So when dragging a blend file that is not really a valid Blender document into Blender, we'll get now this very nice dialog. Next. Oh, the preferences window is now wider when you open it. Yes, I don't know if you've noticed, but I can go back to the regular. I use Blender in 1.3. Yeah, so if I open the window, you may have noticed that it's now slightly wider and wide enough to have 2 columns of the theme settings, and also wide enough to not have to crop the text and be able to read the whole thing. Because before, I think it was something like this wide, and you wouldn't be able to see some, or to completely read some of the labels. In this case, they were like really bad. So yeah, small thing. I also seen that one in right click select, so glad to tackle another right click select improvement. How big is it now? Well, it went from 660 pixels to 840, so it still fits, takes half the space on a less than half the window on a full HD screen, so it's acceptable. Next, a new operator allows you to delete other workspaces. That is new, and that is awesome. So you can now, if you only want to keep one workspace, we want to simplify your things, you can do right click, delete other workspaces. I don't know why it's here, it should be up here. Anyway, you can delete other workspaces and you have only this, and then you can add them back. Of course, you can build in. This is probably the fastest way to make a simple setup. You just add the ones that you want, so you can actually go to layout, delete all the others, and just start from scratch and the ones you want. Cool. Next, icons. There are new icons in edit mode, and they are colored icons. What? But Blender hates color in the icons. Really? No, it doesn't hate Blender. And actually, Blender is gonna embrace color in icons soon. Anyways, this case is very, well, it makes sense to use color where it makes sense. Let me explain. When you mark an edge as, I don't know, a seam, when you mark a seam, you go to edge, mark seam, the color of the edges becomes red, right? This is the overlay. You have the overlay options to mark them as seam and red. And now you see they have an icon, and the icon actually shows the color that it is. So you can enable it, and also in the menus, you can tell at a glance which one is the one you're going to use. This is, of course, aligned with the preferences. So if you have this in the theme, and you change the theme of the 3D viewport seam, you will see it changing live, both in the icon and in the UI, the user interface. Such a small thing, but I think it helps. And I want to do this more in other places of Blender. So to have icons, for example, the normals here, like face normals, that here we can use the color of the normals. We have a theme option for this. So I think this will be next. I want to tackle this. I want to also introduce this where it makes sense. For example, all the gizmos here where we actually have colors for the axis, we could have a color, a little bit of color. Modifiers could also have colors, right? We have the blue for modifiers. So all these icons could have a hint of blue. Or even, we could even go further. Well, I don't know if this is a good idea, I'm just thinking about it, but it could be a combination of these colors where we use green and purple to specify when you generate new geometry or when you modify geometry. So this could even be like all the deform modif could be like a mix of blue and purple, maybe, because you know it's the combination of, okay, I'm modifying the geometry, I'm not creating new geometry, and so on and so forth. What do you think? This is pretty out there. I haven't even discussed it with the team yet. Next. Bring back color. Yes, nice, great. I have someone from the team here, Nika, agreeing with this. All right, I want to make some time for this soon because we have less than a month before beta. So let's hurry up. And next, improve image output file format menu. Oh, that's another one from me. Yes, being long annoyed by how hard was it to find a freaking JPEG or OpenXR, or like, this is how the menu used to be. We used to have more columns because image and video were in the same in the same place. Actually, in Blender 4.5, that's the case. If you go to 4.5 output, select, you have image and movie, not even video, movie. And then you have to choose FFmpeg video, which most people don't even care what FFmpeg is. It's just one video. So now this list is now smaller because you can choose the media type before. And also this menu now shows you the extension and is sorted. This is an idea by ACES that I really like, is to place the most frequently used or most popular, not frequently used because it's not dynamic, is fixed by my criteria, which I think these are the most, well, I made a PR, I got some feedback, but I think these are the most popular ones. JPEG, OpenEXR, PNG, and WebP. WebP maybe is not so popular yet, but it's an open standard and it's good to promote it as such because it's awesome. I use WebP as much as I can nowadays, more than JPEG. Next, shape key menu sanitation. Yeah, Patrick has been on a roll with improving the shape keys and tree views, and there are so many more patches coming for improving tree views like lists in Blender for 5.0. This one, it's a big change. You can see it here. Naming conventions have changed. The functionality is the same, nothing has changed, just the naming has changed. So mirror, we don't use the word mirror, we use the word flip, mostly like flip names in rigging, in armatures, so it makes sense. Also, that's the name that other software use. We're not going to name those software, but they use that. So yes, makes sense. The new shape from mix is very verbose. Combined is maybe shorter and makes sense. Duplicate shape key became duplicate because you are already in the shape key context, so you don't need to have that. Copy from objects, update from object showing a shape stays. I let you have a look at this. Also, there is a new option called make bases, which also it was next to the move to top and bottom, which doesn't make sense. Also, the move to top and bottom, they don't make any sense anymore because you can now drag and drop those. And there is also a context menu, which I'm going to show in a bit, which also was implemented by Pratik. So thank you, Pratik. Basically, you can now right click and move to last or move after bases, because now, I don't know if you noticed, but there's no way, you can't in Blender, it's forbidden to move a shape key above bases. So it's good that it now makes sense. And you have a context menu, you can right click on it, which wasn't possible before. You will get only the edit source if you had developer extras on. On top of that, you can now delete items from this kind of lists with the X key or the delete key. So it makes things so much simpler. Shortcut. And there's more options coming for managing this, and also for navigation with the keyboard. If you want to quickly rename many items, you can just go with the keyboard. You select one, F2, delete, go down, and make things so much easier. It's not there yet, but it's being worked on. We need to review all of them. But the idea for 5.0 is like these three views are going to be so much better for 5.0 than they were before. Keyboard navigation, focus, improvements, so nice. And last but not least, related to the user interface, is this improvement by Harley, who made it so the big font placeholder. So when you can't find when Blender can't find a font for that specific character, it used to be, yeah, it was to follow the size and it will be all over the place. Now it will be a consistent size. So yay, thank you, Harley. Okay, more changes. It's way too late, over 2 hours, but let's go. USD nerve curves as curves is an improvement on how when you import USD nerves as the new curve object instead of the old curve object, which means it's much better. It supports all the custom prim vars. It's using the new curve data block. It properly reads cyclic nerves as before, properly writes cyclic nerves, and so nice. Then UV, in the UV editor, is a new improvement related to the UV sync project. Support island selection with sync select in vertex and edge mode. This used to be disabled because island selection used to be exposed as a UV selection mode. Let me show you, because this is much cooler when you actually see it in action. Let's go to UV editing. Let's try to have a bunch of objects here with different overlapping UVs. Why can't I select? Okay, I can't select any. Oh, because I'm in a different object, or because I had sync. Anyway, this is coming basically. So we have sync select. You can select objects over here, but also they were limited by the. It's so stupid. Anyway, when you have island selection, having island and sync selection wasn't allowed, and now it is allowed. You basically have to use it as if it was the 3D viewport. So it would be the same concept as having press the L key, basically. Before, this was forbidden. It was grayed out. You wouldn't be able to combine these two because it didn't work. But now it basically just behaves like pressing L. Next. All right, sequencer, we're getting there. Video sequence editor. Big and small and performance and so many changes coming. Let's time. Faster waveform vector scopes calculation. Again, the performance king is back. ACES made it so the waveform and the vector scope are faster now. So in main, something I used to take 33 milliseconds, now it's 10. Something I used to take 53 milliseconds for a HDR EXR vector scope is now less than 10. Super nice. And the same with color space management is needed. It's also now takes a bit more, but not as much. It used to go from 53 to 85 milliseconds, and now went only from less than 10 to 13. So very much welcome improvement. Let's add emojis. So thank you, ACES, for this. All these tests are on a 4K resolution, by the way. Then there are more changes coming actually, but let's go in order. Let's try to group them all because they're actually very related to each other. The histogram scope is now improved and supports HDR content. So it actually properly shows HDR content. We have SDR. This is how it used to be. This is now. But HDR is now actually properly used. So this is how it was before. And now you have this. Nice. Let's see how it's in action even. Waveform, move around. You can even see the whole thing. You can see it as you play. Oh, nice. Oh, they even have labels and they update nicely. Even as you scale up, you get more detail. So nice. And it's fast and it's performant. So good. Nice. Thank you, Aras. What else? Which one? Oh, 1, 2, 3. This is the third one. Related to scopes. Also, now they are running on the GPU. They look better, and the HDR support was added for the waveform parade view. So this is how it used to be in 4.0. Ah, nice. I like how shows the progress. So this is 4.0 before the big change was done some time ago. Like, look at, this is how 4.0, if you're still using Blender 4.0, this is how you're using it. And what you're missing out, if you switch to Blender 4.5, it looks like this. Much nicer, more readable, more actual useful in yeah, UI. Pretty. And now, bam, this is how it looks now. So this is 4.5 and this is Blender 5. There is more information. HDR support basically shows you multiple dimensions properly. Nice. Awesome. Thank you, Anas. Performance is even faster. So it looks nicer, more precise, and it's faster. Here's some numbers actually. EXR image preview from 25 to 60 FPS on a Mac M4 Max. And EXR image preview plus 3 previews from 22 to 60 FPS. Again, 50 to 60 FPS. Is this being capped somehow by the screen? Without the compute-based rasterizer, the playback was about 3 frames per second. Wow. Okay, this is kind of huge. So in Blender 4, it used to go at less than 8 frames per second. In Blender 4.5, 14. And in this PR, well, you see the numbers here. That's crazy. So nice. Okay, and this deserves all the emojis in the world. Thank you, Aras, for making Blender awesomer. And of course, he made a blog post. Nice. Let's share this so you can go and read the actual blog post from the man himself. Let's see. It was time to do some science. I like that. Make a tiny web GPU test that tests various points. Wow, it really went above and beyond. Oh, you even made this. Wow, man. Really put in a lot of the effort. Wow. Okay, let's continue. I skipped a few because they're related. So back to all new features in the video sequence editor. These are related to the Story Tools project. This one in particular is copy settings of the active scene instead of making a new one. I don't know if you remember, but in Blender 4.5, when adding a new scene, right, you can make a new scene. Well, this scene would be based on the current scene, but it would actually use this option to create new, which was not great, because what if you have, say, a 4K resolution, right? And you make a new scene from here using this operator. The scene 2 now has 1080p. Why? Well, because Blender's default is 1080p. It's hard-coded in Blender, right? When you open Blender for the first time. That's so useless. That's why instead of that, you should use copy settings, which makes a new scene but copies over the settings. So your new scene will have the same 4K resolution that you set before. So useful. So now that is the default behavior for creating a new scene from within the sequencer. Yes, nice. Okay, next. Duplicate strips. In Blender 4.5 and prior, when you duplicate a scene strip, it would actually use the same scene. It wouldn't duplicate it. So there were 2 steps if you wanted to add a new scene here. You have to go to the scene and switch it, and yeah, super annoying. In Blender, we have that concept already, that if you have a object, a mesh, and you want to make a copy but use the same, you wouldn't use Shift D, you would use Alt D, where the object stays linked using the same data block for the mesh. So the same concept has been carried over to the sequencer. Now you just do Shift D for making a copy, Alt D for the previous behavior. Next, Ramon Cloak added copy paste operators to the preview keymap. So the preview in the sequencer. So what I just removed, actually, we go back to the video editing here. Now there are shortcuts for copy and paste. Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and Ctrl Alt V. From the sequencer, now you can do Shift A, and now I'm showing this in 4.5, but it's the same. It looks pretty much the same in 5.0. If you do Shift A to add a new scene, you will find there is now an empty scene, but you also find the list of scenes that you have available there, and they are here under scenes. Like this is the title scene and this is the list, but you can also find scene assets. So if you have another scene, like another scene that happens to be an asset, you mark it as asset, you will find it in this list as well. You have assets unassigned because it doesn't have a catalog yet, but it's in the scenes. But if I had this, my storyboard setup scene, and say, for example, I added to a new catalog in my current file that I call storyboard stuff, then I move it there, it will be listed under scene, storyboard stuff, my storyboard setup. So I can quickly add this scene as many times as I want. Boom. Let's see. Next. Clear strip keyframe. Whoops, it added a new window. Let's see. Clear strip keyframes from preview. Yeah, there is now a new operator that allows you to strip animation, clear the keyframes from within the preview instead of relying on going to the other view. Nice. Thank you, Ramon. Enable pie menu on drag for the preview keyframe insert menu. When that option is on, allows you to change these keyframes. Instead of pressing I to insert a keyframe, you can drag to insert different kinds of keyframes. Next, support adding multiple images. This is a change by John. Yes. So before, trying to add multiple strips would always create an image sequence. And now this allows you to add it as individual strips, and just like movies and sound strips. So nice. There is a new image sequence detection property that has been added, which works like the image editor. Toggling it off will always import individual options, as you can see here. Nice. Good. Okay, next. Clear cache when toggling meta strips. This is a change by Sebastian Parbrook that makes it so make sure that you clear the cache when you are going in and out of the meta strips, because sometimes things can change and the cache will be out of date. So good to see. Thank you, Sebastian. Then scene selector and scene time synchronization. All right, this is a big one. This is the biggest feature. I would have called the I would have called today's episode story tools or storyboarding or sequencer scene time selection, because it's pretty big. This is the first time ever in history that Blender is capable of showing two different timelines in the same window at the same time. So you're familiar, you add a sequencer, your timeline, it's the same for the dope sheet, for the graph, for the sequencer, for timeline, for everywhere. Not anymore. You can now have two, and this is amazing because allows you for some pretty interesting setups. For example, say I have this file, right? This is my blend file. I have this animation that I'm working on. I have a cube over here, and right, this is my scene. Cool, amazing. So this is my edit scene. Perfect. Cool. So this is what I have. Actually, in this case, I didn't even need anything. So I didn't even need an object there. I'm not going to use that. I'm going to make a new scene. So let's add a new scene, new empty scene. And this is a different scene, right? I can actually go to this. Let me enable the footer because this hasn't changed. The UI hasn't changed yet, but here. In the footer of the video sequence editor, there's now an option called sync scene time. If I enable this, when I scrub over this strip, it will switch to this. Why I can't click anymore? Okay, here. It will switch to my other scene, which is gonna be my first scene. Great, awesome. Let's add a new one. Or I can even just Shift D to make a new scene. And then I will be in scene number 1, second scene, right? Second shot, boom. And now I am switching scenes, but I don't know if you noticed, this scene, this is one timeline, and these are two timelines. So here I can have one scene, and here I have another scene, which means I can create a whole movie, basically a whole storyboard, switching scenes from another scene. This is time travel, but within Blender. It's amazing. This is, I don't know if you see the potential on this, how mind-blowing it is. Anyway, you see the active scene over here. This is why I mentioned that it's important to see the active scene. Of course, you're looking at it at a bigger resolution than it is, but usually this is how you use Blender, right? You have it here, you have your scene back and forth, and you're changing back and forth. So finally, after all these years, the video sequence editor with scenes is a lot more useful than it used to be, right? And of course, if I have nothing in between, I still have, remember what I had before, that I went back to the edit scene, but you probably don't want to have the edit scene. So this is amazing. This is huge. It's incredible. And this is unique to Blender, I think. Well, maybe there are other software that does it, but or maybe Unreal has it, but it's lacking all the other features anyway. So it is pretty big, I would say, and it's one of those features that I believe in the future, if you combine this with Grease Pencil, storyboarding tools, 3D, 2D, 2.5D, you can storyboard a whole movie by just having your sequencer and your scenes up there. It's pretty big. Combine it with the asset browser, where you can just drag in. Imagine if you had like the asset browser here, right? You have a list of all your characters, your scene, your objects, right? You have a human meshes, for example. You have a scene here. This is a tiny head. Yep. And then you go to the other scene and you add a character over here. This is awesome. All within one Blender window. This was possible before with some hacks by having two windows, because you can pin a scene per workspace. So you have to have two windows, two workspaces. But no, this is awesome. It's not for videos anymore. Well, I mean, Blender sequence editor could support scenes since a while, but this is insane. Super, super good. Anyways, that's part of the project for story tools, which you might have heard for a while, because we've been discussing it in a while. Anyway, huge work, insane amount of work by Folk and the sequencer team and Dalai and Francesco and everyone involved, and Sergey and everybody involved in everything pretty much, because it's a big thing. Showing, it doesn't sound like it, but it's you're showing 2 timelines in one window. Anyways, let's move on. Oh, another big thing, a new tool actually in the sequencer. I don't know if you noticed, there is a new icon here that is the slip tool. So the same way that you can select, and here, well, this may work better with an image sequence, which I don't happen to have here, but anyway, basically when you slip content, it just crash Blender by slipping an image. Okay, never mind then. I may have some screen recording here, yes. So if I cut this and then I slip this with the S key, I can slip the content here, right? Well, now there's a tool for that. So you enable the tool and you can just click, drag around, and it will just work. So it works a lot more like other editors where you have a dedicated tool for that. There is also a custom cursor. It's useful for tablets where a keyboard option is not handy, it's not at hand. Alt may be used in order to ignore slipping for connected strips when using the tool, similar to selection logic. So if you happen to have a, well, here this doesn't have any audio, any sound, but if it did have sound, you will see that if you hold Alt, you will be slipping one part, so the audio or the video, but not the rest. Super nice. Let's see what else is new. Show shortcuts in the strip animation menu. Oh, small change by Ramon also, but quality of life. I've never actually noticed that the animation menu was lacking the shortcuts. Now they are. Now they show. Super nice. Thank you, Ramon. And that's it for the video sequencer. Last but not least, let's talk about, well, actually there's a few more sections. Vulkan, support for HDR on Windows. So Windows now supports, if you're using Vulkan, supports HDR. So this whole episode has been very HDR-y. There are some limitations with Intel GPU and dual GPU support, but it should be possible to work. The behavior is closer to Mac OS. Super nice. In the future, we may add controls inside Blender for absolute HDR needs, but for now it works like Mac OS. So yay, nice. Next, let's talk about weight paints. Small change. Default, the default of 0 weights is now setting to active. So now you can actually see the option by default. Even when you have values that are close to 0, you will tell the difference. And finally, the Workbench has one change, which is the default color. So by default, Blender would default to the object color, and now it defaults to material. So this makes more sense because it's something more users will modify, like the material color instead of the object color by default. Small change, but it's a little quality of life improvement. Okay, how long am I been streaming? Let me ask OBS. 2 hours, 20 minutes. Okay. Are there any questions? Can I do 10 questions? Otherwise, do you hate me if I do only 10 questions? It's a long day. Look, there's not even more light here. It's a long episode. There's a lot to cover. Let's see. Let's go to the 10 most updated, upvoted questions. So there is one. It's complicated because the first 2 questions have votes, which means we should cover them. Let's see. Maybe you can do all of them. Let's see. First question by Titanic Tigrex. All right, let's see. Hi, Pablo. Are there any plans for improving 3D texture painting? Yes, there are plans. It's one of those projects that we know the community wants and needs, but it's hard because there are many layers. What is texture painting? What is it painting? Is it baking? Is it material layers? What is it? But you've seen some baking improvements today. You've seen some multi-red support improvements. UVs are stored, are kept. So yes, it's a high priority, but it's difficult. But if not having the paint get cut off, if it's a very specific issue, you should file a bug report. Maybe it's already reported, but in the worst case, you just get it's marked as duplicate, and it gives a hint to developers that this is something that needs to be addressed. Next, hi Pablo. I hope everything is well. Thank you. I hope you too. I downloaded Blender 5.0 alpha and I have some accessibility related questions. Is there a way to set the most small increment and large increment colors of the grid? No, there's not. Sometimes when the zoom in is difficult to tell which is which, if they are the same color and just one tiny bit thicker. It's also difficult to find the color settings now. The color setting is just the same as 4.5. That hasn't changed. It's the grid color in the theme for the viewport. There should just be a search at the top of the preferences. Yeah, I hope. I mean, it's adding search is one request that I have for a long time, but it's not easy to do, unfortunately. I wanted to change the viewport grid color, but I was in themes, which means I had to go on a hunt to find the color settings. Well, everything is theme in Blender. So what is the option? So this would be like a grid option to have these 2 different colors. So is it like adding 2 new options? Or maybe one is like a contrast? I don't know if the description defines it. Grid and grid increment. There is a color setting for the grid. Sometimes it's difficult to see the difference. I would love just to be able to have 2 different color sets. Can you please add a grid increment color setting to preferences? Let's see. Could be interesting to adjust that. Who else? I think Inkscape has that option, no? To have 2 different. Well, I don't know why I'm going into Inkscape, but I think they do have for grids in the interface and grids. Yeah, they do have minor and major grid colors. They have different options. Interesting. Maybe we could do something like that. And let's move on. Wait, and there's another question. Is there a way to change the way cubes are drawn inserted on the stage? For example, draw a cube by points. First point, second point. Or can you recommend an extension where I can do this? I want to draw buildings from plans and they're... No, I think the closest you have is the Add Cube tool, which allows you to draw a... well, you can snapping, I think, on this, no? Or not. Yeah, you can use snapping with this. And then you draw the points and then you go up and then you snap to something else. That's the closest thing that I know. But there might be add-ons for this. I'm not sure. Rodrigo, I'm losing my voice, sorry. Inkscape, Inkscape today Yeah, it's like, oh wow, I'm really sorry. I'm really it's exactly after the 2 hour mark that my voice starts breaking. But you mentioned Inkscape today. I just wanted to give a little shout out to Godot Engine because they don't have Blender today. They have Godot tomorrow, which it's a live stream 1 hour ago. They already had it 1 hour only long, but yeah, it's super nice. So Emilio Coppola, Emmy, is live streaming now, sharing what's new in Godot. Same way that we do here, but live. So super nice to see them. See them there, and oh, there's a Blender a sticker there at the on the TV. Huh? Yes, and I happen to have a plushie here, so there is already a connection between the two streams. Anyway, cheers to Emmy, and great to have this. More open source software should be sharing what they do on a weekly or bi-weekly fashion, or even once a month. It's always good to have this. Okay, next. I shared the video there on the chat if you want to have a look. Next. I have a question about the composition view and render results. Do you know what might be happening? Different results in view node and render result. And what exactly is different? View node and render result. Sounds, if you're having the same output, then it looks like a bug. Please report it. This should be the same. Group output and viewer should be exactly the same. Please report it. Check if Blender 5 is happening also in Blender 5, and also check if it did happen in Blender 4.5, so you can compare and see if it's a regression or not. Next, Pascal says, any plans to fix manifold extrude and poly build and other broken tools first before adding new ones? Well, no, they're not adding new ones at all, so that's maybe, no, it's not a good thing, but yeah, they should fix manifold extrude and poly build. They have been added for over 5 years now, and they didn't get any fix or improvements. I need manifold extrudes to work well, just like in other DCCs. Please tell devs to do it. Sad face. We are actually, by making this call, we are actually asking people from the community indirectly to fix those issues. Do you have bug reports that you can link to? Because that's the first step. You, as a user, you know what things work and what doesn't work. So you should make a bug report saying this doesn't work and point to it. Or this could work better, make a proposal, link to it. But just shouting is like, hey, fix it, make it better, does not really help if you don't have a specific use case. Because for you it's very common, but for other people who are not involved in this, it sounds like, fix it. Yeah, fix it what, right? Next. Hi, Pablo, how are you? Good, how are you? I already mentioned the axis in orthographic view, and you comment on it to add highlighted white grid in the center. I really hope this gets addressed, because right now it's hard to tell where the center is in orthographic view. I completely agree. Actually, I commented on this. I think I even upvoted it. No, I think the center line should always be visible, so otherwise visible. And there was some discussion. Yeah, there was some discussion on it a month ago. Yes, I agree. It should always be visible, at least some more subtle. But yes, that might be a good one for the community to tackle, because not really that hard. Let's see. Read the questions posted first. That's true. I need to go to the bottom. Those are the ones posted first. I believe I have found the oldest bug in Blender. Hi, by the way. First reported back in 2014. Nah, come on, there is more. I've been using Blender since. Oh, oh, you managed to fix it into 1.6. Huh, interesting. So 12 years ago has been posted, but it has been broken ever since. Anyway, it's good to keep reminding people about this bug from 11 years ago to now. And it's still open, no? Yes. In Windows 8, which is not even supported anymore. And GTX 600 also not supported anymore. So yeah, good luck with that one. Maybe it only needs is a poke after 11 years. No questions this time, says Ansurs. I wanted to share some artworks of talented artists I found on the internets. I'm gonna share them. They have been, oh nice, Juan Hernandez made a stitch with ZBrush, Substance, and Blender. So nice. Wow. Nice. And then these two, the other one by Stefan Meyer. Blender, ZBrush, and Mari. Nice. So the goal is that one day they can just say Blender. And it will be... It is amazing. Stefan Meyer and Juan Hernandez. Nice. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Next. I think the VFX module says no. Okay, wait. First question is here. Which compositors are assets coming up in 5.0? We will be able to add modifiers to the image editor and a video sequence editor as well. Okay, that's many questions. First, compositor assets are coming into the in 5.0. There are some built-in assets that will make it, so like vignette and some basic ones to give people like a heads up that hey, you can do it. But being able to add them as image editor and video sequence is still being worked on. So no guarantee that will be 5.0. We're 1 month away only of the beta. Hi Pablo, it's a big anime. How many questions I did already? 1, 2, 3, plus 2 on top. Okay, let's do 5 more. Hey Pablo, hope you have a great day and thank you for the live stream. What is your opinion on this? Motion blur, shutter angle. More and more places, Blender, we have real world units. But the motion blur is still a 0 to 1, and it should be a angle. I don't know. I don't know. Like, how does it make it easier? I don't know. Something so visual that I'm not sure. Time taken between frames. As angle? Shutter angle is a standard in motion picture. It will be consequent since we use f-stop, focal length. Maybe it makes sense. I'm not too involved in it to make a proper discussion, but maybe drop by the rendering channel on Blender chat to bring it up. So it's like, does it make sense or not? You don't have to, because it's not a feature request. It's a question, a really question. Would it make sense to have, you don't even have to link anywhere. It's just, would it make sense to have shutter speed, shutter as not the shutter speed, the shutter as angle instead? Just a question. Now, next. Never mind, you had it already. What was it? Ah, for the seam edges. Yes. Yeah, I already done that. Will Blender 5 get nerve shapes or solid shapes that don't need small squares, lighter files? And don't think so, but we never know. There's some people working on nerves without anyone knowing. Okay, last question, because I can't even speak, and it's almost 8 o'clock. It's gonna be a long stream. Hi Pablo, have you seen Punisher Rampage Rally Challenge? No, I haven't. These things supercharge interest in Blender. Most people join to have their name and work. I'm not sure if fits Blender Foundation to host something similar, but it's important to know that what drives people to pick up and learn Blender. You should take part in the next one. I firmly believe every developer should actively use their software to bring a project from start to finish. Absolutely. And I agree. And I mean, I'm not, I even from my page, I link to my portfolio, and I try to use Blender every now and then for small things, work, or even like this artwork. I just did it last year to print it and have it on my wall from start to finish using Blender. Although I did use particles for this before, and I was frowned upon because you should have used geometry nodes, but then I converted it into geometry nodes. But I like I like using Blender, of course. I use it, Blender. I made this. We chose Blender. Next. On a brief related note, I use the Sintel rig in my submission. I can't wait for it to be updated with geometry nodes here and dynamics. I'm curious how new GeoNodes physics be handled in menus. Are we looking at a copy of the current physics stuff as a massive node in modifier stuff? Maybe not. I think it's gonna be a collection of more like hair stuff, where you have a number of node group assets that you connect in a way that makes sense and brings you something. I'm not sure if it's gonna be easy to be able to make the UI as easy to use, even though weird, physics are weird, but it's easy to use, the current one, the ones that you see in the menus, in the panels. So that's a challenge. All right. I really running out of voice. Sorry. Yeah, look, it's even super dark. Let me. Not even. That didn't help. Okay, a bit maybe. Okay. How are you? Did you like this show? This is way too long, and I'm afraid the next one is also gonna be long, because the next one is the week of the Blender conference, the 16th of September. I will try to make it, otherwise it's gonna be way too much. But it's exactly the day before the conference, and those days are pretty busy. So I can't promise you anything, but I will try my best. I am running out of voice, really. It's breaking. I hope you had fun. I did myself. I learned so much about new things in Blender. I know now that 5.0 alone will be huge because of all the HDR support, new color space stuff. Yeah, it's all over the place. I love it. I hope you do too. And I hope to see you next time for another episode of Blender Today Live. Watch your ear holes. I fed it out. I hope to see you next time. Have fun. Happy blending. See you. Bye. Ciao.